Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third session with our most respected Swami Lakshmi Narayan ji. Thank you for joining us today's session on managing stress during uncertain time, session 3. It's my honor to introduce Swami Lakshmi Narayan ji, our guest speaker from the Vedanta Academy. Swami Lakshmi Narayan ji is a senior disciple of Swami Partha Sarthi ji, and he organizes public lectures and seminars on various topics related to the philosophy of Vedanta. For the first 45 minutes, Swamiji will share his insight on the topic, and next 15 minutes have been kept for the question and answer session. If you have any question during the presentation, please type them into the question and answer chat window at the bottom panel. And your question will be answered during the question and answer session by Swamiji. Your mic is on mute during the entire session. You will be allowed to talk during the question and answer session only. Handing over to Swamiji.
Thanks, Taruna, and good morning, all of you. We've been discussing about how to manage stress, and this is our third session today. So we had talked about stress as our response at the body level to a real or an imagined threat to our existence, identity, survival, desire, etc. So it's a physical response. So I was explaining to you that we are all from jungle, we were hunter-gatherers. So for our survival mechanism, the body makes us, secrete adrenaline. So that we can fight or flight when there is a threat, when we were in the jungle. So I gave the example of a snake. For example, supposing you stamp on something when you were in the jungle, you don't know whether you had stamped a snake or something else, but you feel like it could be snake. You don't even have time to look down and ascertain whether it is snake or something else. So immediately the body sends out the response for the threat in the form of adrenaline chemical, so that the body gets ready to fight the danger or run away from the danger. Now, this is for our survival. But unfortunately, when we have come to this modern world today, most of our issues are imagined. Only 5% or 10% is actual threat, and 90% is imagined threat. So for example, now there is a threat called COVID, but due to this COVID, you may lose job, you may lose somebody in the family. So many other fear comes. So all this, if you don't control those kind of thoughts, and if you keep on getting stressed by that, then the body secretes adrenaline, and then slowly, cortisol, etc. That leads to lots of other desires. So probably a lot of people die more due to the fear of these imagined things than the actual threat. So that is the problem nowadays. So the source is within. The problem is the mind. So therefore, we can't try to find a solution outside. We need to bring about a complete change in our entire personality. So when we say within, what we actually mean is the mind, the thoughts. But we as a human being are nothing but a combination of personalities. We have physical body, we have the mind, intellect, the prana, and all that. So in this diagram that I have projected on the screen, a real self is covered by 5 layers or 5 sheets, as it were. They call the food sheet the physical body, then the vital air sheet, the physiological function, then the mental sheet, the emotional sheet, then the intellectual sheet, the thinking thought sheet, and then the bliss sheet, which is the, you can say, the subconscious. So this is the human personality. So from the time we wake up till the time we go to bed, these are the 3 transactions we go through: receipt, reaction, and response. So to handle stress, we need to manage all these 3: receipt, reaction, and response, all the 3. So in the next diagram, I had given that, we receive the stimuli from the world outside, it goes to the mind, and the mind reacts. Depending on the emotions inside, your mind reacts. Like supposing you come to know that a famous celebrity is coming to your neighborhood for some program. If you had fascination for that celebrity, then you will react that you would like to be in that program. So would like to find out where you can buy the tickets, etc. But if you had no such fascination for that celebrity, then you are not going to put in those efforts to get there. So inside our mind, we have a certain conditioning. So the receipt goes and then it reacts inside and then we respond back. So therefore, so far I was talking about the food sheet. You got to handle the food sheet by taking care of the food habits. What do you eat? When do you eat? How much do you eat? How often do you eat? How do you eat? And all that. That you got to take care. Because end of the day, what we consume is going to become our body. So we better be conscious of it. And then I talked about the importance of physical exercise. Because whatever chemicals that is stored in our body, see, for example, when there is stress and if the animal comes under a stress, it runs to escape from that danger. Supposing a zebra sees a lion, to escape from the danger, the zebra will run. When it runs, the chemicals that are there, they get secreted, But human beings, what we do, we get stressed, but our lifestyle is such that we'll be watching TV, browsing our laptop. We'll be all lazy, lackadaisical lifestyle. So we need to have exercise, at least half an hour to 45 minutes to 1 hour on a daily basis. Then, of course, we need to have general control over all our receipts of stimuli. So that's what I called as regulation or sense control. Then I talked about leading an active lifestyle. Action is the insignia of life, inaction is death. So if you rest, you will rest this. So you got to keep yourself positively engaged. You cannot keep your mind idle. Idle mind is a devil's workshop. So it becomes important that you have a schedule where you keep yourself busy positively. So I said it's not just exercising for half an hour and then leading a lazy lifestyle throughout. Generally, you got to be active throughout the day. Then I talked about the importance of sleep. And in the sleep, I talked about the importance of dream and deep sleep both. So when we have approximately 6 to 8 hours of sleep, we go through 4 to 5 REM cycles. Now, these are very, very important that we have this, 4 to 5 REM cycles. So during this dream, the unresolved desires or thoughts are kind of processed in our brain and it gets sorted out, majority of it. So life becomes better, easier to handle. Most of our, unresolved issues in the brain keeps on repeating it in the form of dream and we go through that and then the tension and everything reduces. So sleep is a very, very important aspect that we should not disturb that. So I said as a tip, before going to bed, do not, at least for 1-2 hours, do not get into this watching of this mobile phones and, all those kind of things you should avoid so that you take care of your sleep. All this we talk. And then I said, whenever you are stressed, your sympathetic nervous system is kicked in. So that, if a mad dog is looking at you and it's about to pounce on you, you need to get ready to run like a mad fellow. So you need that adrenaline, the body pumps in that adrenaline and you will run like a mad fellow. Isn't it? So your sympathetic nervous system will kick in so that you can run like a mad fellow. That is not the time to think about the future. Now, you don't know. If a lion is confronting you, you don't know whether you will be alive only for future. So we need to deal with it right now. So parasympathetic nervous system, which quietens you, calms you, so that you can think about the future and all that, So during emergency, you can't be thinking about the future. So the sympathetic nervous system kicks in and then you get ready to handle the situation then and there. So to reverse this process, we need to use our vital energy, the pranas. So what happens is when the mind is disturbed, when you're stressed, the physiological functions goes for a toss. Your circulatory system goes for a toss, your digestion system goes for a toss. And people sitting in the air-conditioned room, but since they are heavily stressed, they are profusely sweating. So the mind, when it is disturbed, it has an effect on the physiological functions of pranas and also on the physical body. So by bringing about certain disciplines at the body level and the mind level, at the prana level, you can bring in a certain conducive effect over the mind. So in pranayama means control of breath, control of prana. Now, when you are stressed, your breathing becomes shallow. You breathe like that. Shallow it becomes. It's not deep and long exhalation. So when you are calm, composed, serene, you have a deep, long exhalation. So what they do is, in this pranayama techniques, they make you breathe longer than, exhale longer than the inhalation. So when you do pranayama, you breathe in for 4 counts through the left nostril and breathe out through the right nostril for 8 counts. Then you breathe in through the right nostril and breathe out through the left nostril. So when you practice these kind of pranic exercises, for which I told you to get hold of a good yoga teacher and learn and then do these things. Now in pranayama, there is something called as holding the breath, which I won't recommend for you right now. That only when you go to a proper teacher, and if he or she thinks that you can do that, then he will teach you that. But just simple breathing techniques where you have a longer exhalation, quietens your nervous system so that your mind, it becomes conducive for the mind to calm down. That is why even japa, for example, when somebody is disturbed, you find some people doing japa loudly, Now what happens in japa is, some mantra you chant, but when you chant the mantra, there's a long exhalation because you can only talk or chant when you exhale. You can't do that when you inhale. So therefore, what happens is, there is a long exhalation when you do japa. Om Namo Narayanaya, or anything for that matter. If you are a Muslim and you chant your Quran, if you are a Christian and you do something else, whatever it is, as long as there is long exhalation and also your faith and belief in something superior, all that quietens your mind. In that sense, it helps. So therefore, pranayama makes you breathe, exhale longer, whereby the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, becomes conducive for you to become quieter. So gave the example of a child. The child is throwing tantrums also. You can kind of control the child by kind of engaging a conversation with the child and then, making the child drink a glass of water, or then slowly make the child to take a deep breath in. And then slowly, if you kind of tell the child, probably the child will be in a position to listen to you. So therefore, we need to take care of the food sheath and the prana. Now we have to come to the mental sheath. Now, when we talk about stress, the source is your mind. The unfulfilled desires cause agitations, and the mind, which is in a state of agitation, is called stress, isn't it? So that comes out as a response in the physical body, which I talked about at the beginning. But what is happening is your mind is stressed. You are reacting. You get angry. So when you get angry, what happens? Your hands start shaking. You can't talk properly. Your body is kind of controlled by your emotions. So therefore, that's expressing in the body, but it is coming from the mind. That's why we said the source is within. So whenever we talk about stress, the real problem is the mind and the ego. That's the problem. Mind is full of likes and dislikes, desires, expectations, all kinds of conditionings, emotions. This is your mind, my mind, everybody's mind. So, and the ego. Ego means we think we are separate from the total. We are also part of nature. But we don't understand it that way. We think we are separate from nature and we are constantly trying to extract from nature. So ego is that sense of separateness, not sense of oneness. So we need to handle this mind and ego. So in the Bhagavad Gita, verse number 5, chapter 6, which is called as Dhyana Yoga, there Sri Krishna says, Udared Atmanatmanam Natmanam Avasadayet Atmaiva Atmano Bandhuhu Atmaiva Ripur Atmanaha. Bandhu means friend. Ripu means enemy. So here the word Atma means the mind, the inner personality. So Sri Krishna says, let man lift himself by himself. Let him not lower himself. His self alone is his friend. His self alone is his enemy. Your mind alone is your friend. Your mind alone is your enemy. If your mind, your emotions, your desires, your expectations, your conditionings are all controlled and directed by the intellect, it won't cause you stress. If not, it will cause you stress. So this is the problem, So a person who is viewing the whole thing egoistically, me, I'm separate from the total. See, what we need to understand is this very concept of ego is fake. It's not real. It's a false notion. You understand? This is the problem. Now, why do we require to study the scriptures? Now, like science, for example, there was a time when the entire humanity believed that sun is revolving around the earth. Because, when you wake up, the sun is here and then it goes up, then it goes backwards. So then you think the sun is going around, earth is at the center. This is what it looks like with our naked eye. But when we really carefully analyze, now we know through science that it's the earth that is revolving around the sun and not the other way around. Similarly, it looks like the light is coming from the moon. But actually there's no light coming from the moon. It is the sun's light that is getting reflected from the moon. Similarly, this personality seems to be separate, individual, right? In fact, when you go deeply, the term individual actually could be taken as indivisible, meaning one. But outside we appear as if we are different. But we are all connected, isn't it? If you see now during COVID situation also, all of us are told to be separate. Why? Because the air I breathe out, you breathe in, and then we are all connected. So we need to understand this. But this ego is a false notion whereby I think I'm separate from the total. So it's false. And if I am saying a lie, let us say, to all of you, each one of you, I'm lying something. So to Taruna, I've said one, to Pooja, I've said one, to Solomon, I've said one, then to Sunita, I've said one. So I'm constantly, I have to be at guard as to what I've told whom. I don't know what all stories I've said. So to kind of maintain that lie, I need to go through hell. And still, deep inside me, I know that one day I'll be exposed because I'm trying to protect the lie. Similarly, this ego, how much ever you try to protect it by going on acquiring wealth, or acquiring intelligence, information, or going on acquiring people, relationships, contacts, so that, in your WhatsApp, you have some 25,000 groups and each group has some 100, 200 people. So you have so many people known to you. Your ego wants as much as possible support because by itself it's false. Truth doesn't require so much. It's only the ego that requires so much. So in spite of all that, so much you acquire, whether it's intelligence, power, knowledge, or people or wealth, whatever it may be, you would still be insecure. That's the problem. So a person who is constantly thinking only about himself or herself will always be in stress. It is like trying to make a pencil stand on its tip. You sharpen the pencil and try to make a pencil stand on its tip. It can't. The sharp edge is there. You can't make the pencil stand without so many other support. But if you invert the pencil and try to make it stand on its base, it can stand because it has a wider base. So when a person is egoistic, it is like standing on the tip of the pencil. You can't stand without support. So many factors has to be maintained. And the world is not designed to cater to one individual. So many things will change. So you will be constantly disturbed. Constantly disturbed because you're going on thinking only about you, nobody else. So therefore, an egoistic person will be highly dependent, and the mind would run to the world thought outside. And the more the thoughts run, the more the desires, and the more the desire, more the agitation. Because desire means potential agitation. Because till the desire is fulfilled. And even when you fulfill the desire, what happens? Dil mange more. You want more and more and more. You will never be satisfied. So you will always be in stress. So once I understand this, then I need to create a broader base. How do I do that? It's only through knowledge do I create a broader base. Like, for example, now if I'm conducting this talk, I'm able to conduct this talk because there are so many people who are organizing this, who are involved in this from your organization. And my guru taught me, his guru taught him. So many gurus, Guru Parampara is going. And then so many farmers have worked for the food that I've consumed, for which I am grateful to them. I am talking because of them. And the water I've consumed has come from nature. So I can go on and on. So I need to create a broader base and stop looking at the whole thing from my individual angle. When I shift this, then I will be able to manage stress and eliminate stress. Till then, I won't. Therefore, when we come to mind, the first thing I would like to say is gratitude. You know, most of us are leading an ungrateful life today. In a movie theater, they'd announced that, before the movie, we are going to show you a small, short movie, which won so many awards, internationally acclaimed short movie. So we wanted to show that to the audience free of cost. So please come and be seated 10 minutes before the movie starts. And the movie is only for 10 minutes. So all of them came, sat down. They were so curious to see what was there in that short movie that it won all these awards, So when they came, the movie started. And it started with the camera focusing on a ceiling, the false ceiling, of a room. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes passed, 3 minutes passed. Slowly, they got agitated because the camera is still stuck there. They are continuing to see the same ceiling, nothing else. So after 3 minutes, everybody started becoming fidgety, getting agitated, mentally disturbed. Hey, kya yaar? What is this? That it won some award, this, that. We are seeing this is becoming such a big headache. 4 minutes ho gaya, abhi bhi same ceiling they're showing. So they started, getting agitated and making remarks about this movie and all that with each other. And slowly, 7 minutes passed. They said, anyway, only 3 more minutes. They were all agitated. So when it was 9 minutes, slowly the camera moved from the ceiling to the patient who was lying on the bed. And there were a few words scrolling on the screen. It said, the patient that you see now is, in paralytic attack. He's paralyzed. He cannot move. And he's been seeing this, what you saw for 9 minutes, for the last 10 years, ever since he's been in this condition. Now, 10 years, what he's been seeing, you can't even see for 9 minutes. So life has blessed you with so much of abundance, all of us. All of us are blessed with so much of abundance. You understand? But we are like the tongue. When a tooth falls in the, you know, in your mouth, when one of your tooth falls down. Now what happens is the tongue goes to find the gap. When it's full, the tongue is not doing that. Only when it falls and the gap is there, tongue goes on trying to find that. Similarly, our mind is so much focusing on every time only thinking about what we do not have. But if you just turn your mind from that to what all you are blessed with, the list is infinite. You will instantly find that you are actually filled with so many things for which you need to be grateful. So many things. It's incredible. But we are constantly complaining, constantly complaining. So one other exercise I tell my people who listen to my sessions is every day, start writing down one or two things minimum for which you are grateful for. If you take an A4 sheet and on one side, if you write all the things that you are grateful for, you will find that one side of the sheet is not enough. There are so many things for which you need to be grateful for. So many things. Who's maintaining the temperature inside your body? The hair inside your nose. It is preventing the dust from going into your lungs. Now, like that, if you start thinking, millions and millions of things for which one needs to be grateful. So if you take an A4 sheet and write on one side all the things that I am grateful for, one sheet will not be enough. Similarly, on the other side, if you go on writing what all you lack, that also will not be enough. But unfortunately, today our focus is mostly on all that you lack. So we need to start, getting into this gratitude exercise. Write 2 or 3 things, or maybe 5 things for which you're grateful for on a daily basis. Different 5 things, and slowly you will find that there are so many things for which you have to be grateful for that you have no time to sit and complain. It is just the change of perception. Please understand this. The perception has to change. See, Stephen Covey talks about it. There was a guy who was traveling in the train in US, metro train. And there it's all quiet. Everybody's quiet. They're minding their own business, reading the newspaper, etc. This guy was also reading some book and traveling. It was quiet. Suddenly, in a particular station, when the train stopped, a father with 2 of his sons, small boys, teenage boys, they got into the train. And the train started moving, and these boys started running inside the compartment, and there's chaos. So this guy looked at that father and said, "Hey, are they your sons? Can you not tell them to keep quiet? They're making so much of noise. Can you not see that? Can you not tell them to keep quiet?" Immediately that man said, "Yes, that's in fact what I've been thinking, but I don't know how to tell them, or I don't know even whether I should tell them, because we are just coming from my wife's funeral, that is their mother's funeral. I don't know how to tell them." Immediately that man says, "Oh, leave them alone, let them run around." Now they're running around, they're making noise, but now it's not disturbing him. Before it was disturbing him. Now it is not disturbing. So the world as it is, if you change your perception, and fill your heart with gratitude, when you become grateful, then your entire life will become thanksgiving. This is prayer. Actually, prayer means saying thanks, either to God or nature or whatever. If you don't believe in God, you can say nature. Whatever it is saying thanks. But unfortunately, what has prayer become to now? It has become begging. Begging is not prayer. Prayer is feeling that sense of abundance and saying thanks, feeling full. That is gratitude. So if you change your perception through knowledge and observation, or observation and knowledge, you develop this emotion, which is purified emotion called gratitude. Otherwise you will be complaining about lacking. Lack. All that time you will be lacking. So the more and more you grow gratitude in you, there won't be stress in your life. So it's a very, very important exercise. Every day, first thing in the morning and first thing or the last thing before you go to sleep, you take a paper, write down 5 things for which I'm grateful for. And look at it, feel it, and genuinely from within you say thanks. You believe me, how slowly, you will find that there is no stress in your life. This is the problem. Then the moment you have gratitude, what happens? I talked about action already. So the moment you have gratitude, your actions thereafter will be giving, not taking. See, a guy was going to the market to buy some vegetables and he took some 100 rupees with him, 100 rupee note. And he had put it in his pocket. He didn't realize there was a hole in the pocket. So while he was walking, the 100 rupee note had fallen down. He didn't notice it. So he had gone to the market, he purchased everything, and then he was about to pay the money. Then he found that the money is missing. So he gave the stuff back and he was coming back to his house. He was so agitated. He was so disturbed. So his wife asked what happened. He said, this is what happened, so I'm agitated. So after a few days, when he went back to the market, again he took some 100 rupee note and he was going to the market. That time he saw one young boy, very small boy, crying. He said, what happened? He said, today is my last day to pay the fees. If I don't pay the fees, I won't be allowed to write the exam. And I have about 100 rupees less to pay. So he immediately took that 100 rupees and gave him. And he returned back without buying the vegetables like last time. But today he was extremely exuberant, happy. And he came and told his wife that this is what happened. He gave the money and he is sitting here. So now what has happened? His wife said, yeah, last time also you didn't buy vegetables when you came back, but you were agitated. This time also you came back without buying vegetables, but you're very happy. What is the reason? This time you gave. You understand? Last time you were not a giver, you were a taker. You were complaining. So same world. World is same, nothing has changed. World is same. But due to some change that has happened inside, it doesn't give you stress anymore. Similarly, when we talk about giving at the action level, there is giving at the mental level. Giving at the mental level is called forgiving. I think it's Mark Twain. Mark Twain, when he talks about forgiveness, he says, forgiveness is the fragrance a violet releases. Violet means the flower, a flower called violet. So he says, forgiveness is the fragrance a violet releases as the foot crushes it. As the foot crushes it. So, there's a flower violet, let's say, on the ground, and you are going on the walk. You're going for a walk, and then you didn't see the flower on the floor, on the ground. You stamped on it. Now, you are stamping the flower, but what is the flower doing? It, as your foot is crushing it, it is giving the fragrance from inside. So, forgiveness is giving at the mental level. Now, let me tell you, neither you nor me, or for that matter anybody, we are nobody to forgive anybody. When I say forgiveness, as if we are somebody to forgive somebody. We are nobody to forgive somebody. It is, forgiveness is not from the other person's point of view. Forgiveness is from your point of view. You understand? If you keep on having all the revenge feeling inside you, that gives you stress. If you just let it go, you feel relaxed. उसके जिंदा नहीं छोड़ेंगे, I will not leave him alone, I will finish him off. If you keep on having the grudges, you are the one who's getting agitated. Your BP is going up. Your lifestyle is going through all the turbulence. So forgiveness is more for your sake. The moment you have that forgiveness, you see from the other person's point of view. See, there's a very interesting episode in Mahatma Gandhiji's life. Mahatma Gandhiji, when during freedom struggle, he was sent to prison quite a few times. And once when he was sent to a particular prison for about 6 months, in that prison, there was this prison in charge, a white man. Apparently, he, was not so good to Mahatma Gandhi. He was actually insulting him, harming him, etc. I forget the name of that gentleman. And in the prisoners do some work, So Mahatma Gandhiji was stitching a chappal, it seems. So when he was released after 6 months, he actually was, stitching the chappal for the prison in charge. They gave it to the prison in charge and said, "This is my gift to you." Prison in charge wore it and saw, and it was perfectly fitting his size. So he asked, "Hey, how is it that you could stitch without even taking the measurement of my feet size?" He said, "No, you used to kick me with your boots, with your shoes. So from that, I took the measurement and did this." And he felt so ashamed. And he went through a transformation, it seems, that day. And he apparently told Mahatma Gandhiji that I will keep the shoes not in my shoe cupboard, but in my puja room. Because that brought the transformation. So forgiveness has the power to transform the other person, and forgiveness gets rid of your stress. You need to learn to go beyond. See, not necessarily all the obstacles you need to go on facing. You need to learn to rise above certain obstacles and overlook them. So we need to develop this other important quality or value, you can call it, forgiveness. So I talked about Mark Twain and Mahatma Gandhiji to explain what this forgiveness is. So the moment you understand that, you become stress-free. By holding it to yourself, you are the one who suffers. How he could do to me, what he could do to me, how is it? See, anybody does anything. What goes around will come around, isn't it? If you give goodness, goodness comes back. If you give negative, negative only will come back. You can't help it. So if you are also going to have these kind of negative emotions inside, that is going to give you suffering. So you need to kind of convert the weaker emotions into pillar of strengths. So the emotions inside today is very poor quality. It is all negative. It's not positive emotions. Even people do not have compassion. They have weak pity. Weak pity is not compassion. If you have compassion, it's like your natural fragrance. Weak pity is like you are having, some fragrance on you, something thrown on your body from outside. So therefore, gratitude, forgiveness, and then love. Love is a feeling of oneness. The opposite of it is attachment or lust. See, an egoistic person will be suffering from lust. Lust is not only a sexual desire. Lust is an exaggerated desire for anything and a desire to dominate, acquire, extract. All this comes under lust. It's the opposite of lust. So when you love an object, you even look at the object as a being. You give a name to your house. It's just a property, but you give it a name. There's all kinds of names. Sometimes in the morning when I go for a walk, I like to go for a walk on the outside. On the roads, when I go, some of the house names interest me, intrigues me. I saw one house in Chennai. The house name is Narayiniyam. Somebody names it as Vrindavana. Somebody names it as Crescent. Different names are there. Somebody calls it daffodils. All kinds of names are there. So you love your property, so you give it a name. But when you lustfully look at even a being, for you it looks like an object. So love is what? Love is identification. You identify with everybody, you have a sense of oneness. They're also human beings like you. They're also species like you. They also have the right to live. You understand? So the moment I put myself in their shoes and see, that's love, oneness. What pains them pains me. What comforts them comforts me. So I look at it from that angle. So love, kindness is, how would I say? It's not just an act of kindness, but it's thought of kindness, a feeling. You should not have any ill feeling towards any being. That is kind. Externally, sometimes, out of kindness, you might have to be strict with some people, like your children. Other once in a while, sometimes. But deep inside, it is you doing what is good for them. That is kindness. So when you chasten your emotions, when you purify your emotions, then you will see, you will come out of stress. So when somebody asks Swami Vivekananda, what did this spirituality give you? You've been in spirituality for so many years. What did all these spiritual values give you? He said, I don't know what spiritual values have given me, but the spiritual values, spirituality has taken so many things away from me. What? Anger, jealousy, arrogance, greed, fear, delusion. All these kind of negative emotions are taken away from me. So when we keep positive, it is good for you. First thing you need to understand, when you keep yourself positive, you're not doing anything great to somebody else. Please understand that. When you give, you are doing good for you. When you forgive, you're doing good for you. When you have that attitude of gratitude, you're doing good for yourself. When you're kind and compassionate, you are doing good for yourself. So this is what we need to understand. So therefore, when we purify our mind, what purifies your mind? It's your knowledge and awareness. By strengthening your intellect and building your awareness process, then you would see your, emotions are pretty bad today. See, a lot of people talk about meditation. Even some of the topics that Taruna sent me, she sent few topics out of which yoga, meditation, all are there. And every time she comes to me with the topic meditation, I say something and then I don't conduct any class on meditation. I don't know whether she has been observing it or not. A lot of people jump into meditation directly. We should not jump into meditation directly. Meditation is the final gateway to liberation. So we will talk about it. But what does meditation actually do? It increases your awareness. You understand? And when your awareness is increased, through any process, when you increase your awareness, you cannot have the negative will not survive. Remember, there is in the olden days, we used to have those. Olden days means what, few years ago, we used to have these analog cameras. I used to have a film roll inside and we used to call it negative. It can take about 36 pictures, I guess. So once it's done, we take it carefully and put it in a box, and then we give it to the studio. And the studio fellow takes it to the dark room and develops it and gives it to us. If he exposes that negative to light, it can't be developed. So negative only develops in a dark room. Negative cannot develop when you come to the light. That's why we say on a constant, regular basis, there has to be a program for knowledge. When we talk about knowledge, we don't talk about the information that you gain in schools and colleges. They are different. Real education is, in the Shastras, they say Vidya Vinaya. Vidya means knowledge. When there is Vidya, there will be Vinaya, humility. There will be humbleness. The Bhagavad Gita talks about so many qualities. One of the main qualities it talks about is Amanitvam. Manitvam means no ego, no mana, humility. Adambitvam, no pretentiousness. So, how these things happen? The more and more you become aware. So, we need to build our awareness. When you build your awareness, you'll say, I have so much. What is there for me to complain? Unnecessarily, I've been complaining. So, for building awareness, one of the practices that helps is Maunam. Maunam means practicing silence. Now, when there is some kind of, for example, you're going on talking and making sound. So there is a sound that is coming from the rotation of your fan in the room, but you're not listening to it because you are listening to your own sound. When you keep quiet, then you will become aware of the sound of the fan blades, So the more I become silent, when I give myself an opportunity to practice this Maunam. Maunam is not acting deaf and dumb. Some people, they say they are practicing Maunam and they are going on writing and giving. That is not Maunam. Signaling, that is not Maunam. Maunam means genuinely you practice silence. For half an hour, 1 hour, or half a day, depends what you can. The weekends, whenever, Now, when you are practicing that silence, it gives you an opportunity to observe your own mind. There is so much of filth inside. Once you see the filth, you won't be comfortable. You will get up and do something to get rid of that filth. So it's the awareness. It's unfortunate that most of us suffer from lack of awareness and mindful living. So when you practice Maunam, that is one conducive practice to build awareness. There are so many other ways in which one can do. I'll talk about those things in my next session. See, this stress is a topic, especially in these COVID times. I would like to talk in detail rather than just giving you the gist of it and moving to some other topic. I'm not in a hurry. I don't think so. You guys are also not in a hurry. You digest these things, all these concepts that I've said. I talked about discipline at the body level. I talked about discipline at the prana level. All this, and then now talked about this chastening of these emotions, which is good for you. Once you slowly think about it and digest it, of course, I'll be talking about awareness and all other aspects in my next session that I will be dealing at the intellectual level, intellect sheet level. So today we'll stop here and next time we'll take it forward. If you have any questions now, you can ask me.
Hi all, if you have any question, please raise your hand. So Swamiji, I think we don't have any question. Thank you so much, Swamiji, for sharing your knowledge on various techniques to manage stress during these difficult times. These techniques will help us to manage stress effectively. Thank you so much once again. We are looking forward for another inspiring session in coming days. Dear MPS employee, thank you for your participation. We will be sharing the details of next session in coming days. Have a good day. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.